Welcome to Venator Chronicles Podcast.
I'm Dustin Jelly.
And I'm Ethan Taylor.
Join us on our journey of lessons learned through the world of hunting.
Well, if you made it through the last gear episode.
Dude, that was a banger. I loved it.
Oh my gosh.
You were snoring halfway through, but I personally had a good time. So
Full transparency, I did take my mic away from my mouth at one point so I could chomp on some snacks while you talked about your bow. Because I was not tracking. No, it was good.
Man.
It was good.
It
It was
was
fun.
fun.
It was
It was
more
fun.
fun than I anticipated, so I'll give you that, Dusty.
and you learned something new about me.
Yeah, I can't believe it's aesthetics. Am I saying that right?
Aesthetics. Yes.
I can't believe that is such a huge factor for you,
It's not. I didn't say it was huge. I said it was the first factor.
which makes it the most important factor.
No, it's the starting factor.
No, in the
Oh my gosh, we're already going to fight about this.
yes, if you have something in first place, it would be the first thing you consider, and then everything else would come after that.
But it coincides with the other factors.
The deer moved. I didn't miss. Is what I feel like we're talking about right now.
Dude, the deer did move.
The deer did move, and you did miss.
We can both agree on those two factors.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right.
Started off great.
Okay.
Man, if you don't know,
This is yours. We're gear talk.
we're Gear Talk.
You're the lead host as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but we're talking today about an area where I think all of a sudden you've become a little more passionate, a little more educated, and a little more input is weighted.
I've broken out of my box.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about, we got a part two. So we've got the three parts. We got part one, which was our bows, which really was talking about my issues with commitment. Part two, talking about our stands, because we've both learned a lot. And then part three is going to be about our kind of clothing, so today, part two, we want to address our stands, and I think the big idea we could capsulate in is the idea of going mobile,
Yeah, I think that is.
which is totally hipster right now,
it's so in right now,
Yeah.
dude.
Or,
that
or we
flannels.
could also title this episode "Going from FUD to Hipster."
Yeah, basically, honestly. Do you think that it would be fair to encapsulate like not just your stand, but how you're packing in as a whole?
Yeah,
Not necessarily
kind of
like clothing or whatever.
packing / transport system.
Okay, yeah.
I think we
Sweet,
could do
sweet.
that. That's
Okay.
a good.
Cool.
All right, so where should we begin? So there Ethan was, born August 4th,
1991.
91.
Social Security number. What? Yeah, 91.
Oh, that's right. You're a year younger than my wife
And
to the day.
to the day.
Because you guys
We're
share a
birthday buddies.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Am I going first or yeah? Apparently.
Yeah, I think you're going first. So,
Again, let's
So-
go.
yeah, you're always first.
Thank you. All right. So, I am gonna back up actually pretty far, just to kind of
So there
cover
was
where
August
we started.
4th,
Right?
1991.
Not quite.
Okay.
I started hunting deer, so they didn't have the mentor program, and so I would go out with my dad, and I mean, I'm from a family of 10, so there's a lot of brothers, so there wasn't like always opportunity to go out.
Yep.
I remember occasionally sitting in the stand, built-in stand on the property. We had 40 acres at this particular location, and we were good friends with the neighbors, and so we had much more than that. But
Gotcha.
built-in stand on a tree, and you just go to that stand, right? Okay, and rinse, repeat.
Yep. How many years would you say, roughly?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know, honestly.
Number of years. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, like most. This is rifles. This is rifle hunting
Yep.
only. That kind of thing. Yeah. So we had built-in stands in the woods, and we'd go to those, and we'd sit. I did remember there was essentially two stands, one in the woods, one on the field edge, and that was, yeah, and not a lot of times to go up. Okay, fast forward a little bit. Go through hunter
Puberty?
safety. All right, you got me. So we went through hunter safety. Now I can hunt, right?
All right.
Same thing. Just going to stands that are built into a tree, and that is you're right. Your two by
we could
four.
say-
You got 2x4s to climb up
Box
into the tree.
stands, we could say.
No, not even. Not even, dude.
Two
Just
by
like
two-
2x4s.
2x4 stands.
Yep, and then plywood for the floor, kind of thing. Essentially tree forts, really, like small tree forts. Yeah. So we didn't have ladder stand, like metal ladder stands. We didn't have like that kind of stuff. Okay. So I come into archery after I get married, and it's been a few years of being married, and then it's like, hey, my brother gives me this bow. I start shooting it, fall in love with it, and I'm like, I want a bow hunt. Sweet. Okay, what do? I need a stand to be in a tree.
Mm-hmm.
What seems like the most feasible thing that is like I can get up in a tree?
Yeah.
Climber.
What
climber do I find? A Summit Viper.
Old school Summit Viper.
Yeah, for like $40.
Nice.
Okay. So I used the Summit Viper.
Wait.
Yep.
I'm proud of you.
What?
You remember exactly what brand and what model
Yeah, I
stand you
remember.
have. Proud of you.
Okay.
You couldn't remember what kind of bow you're shooting.
So my perspective going into this was I had no way to get into a tree, right?
Yep.
And it's not like I was watching hunting content all the time. I wasn't seeing how other people were doing it.
Yep.
It was just like, and my dad used a climber. I remember him having one. And so,
And that was kind of, I would say, this was what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago? Yeah, 6 years ago at this point. Like that was, even my own experience, kind of the
Premier.
the de facto style.
Yeah.
At least around here.
Yep.
You know, I don't know other areas, but at least
Well,
northern
to put it in
Wisconsin,
perspective,
northern Minnesota, we got a lot of popholes.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to climb.
Yeah. My first deer that I killed, I just straight up climbed, and it was rifle.
Yep.
I straight up climbed in like probably 40 feet up into a birch tree and just shot it from the birch tree. I didn't have a stand. It was just literally, I climbed up the tree and sat in there for like 2 hours. And right as it was dark, I shot a deer coming out. Okay. So like to me, it was like, I can get it done without a stand. So anyway, when it came to archery, I was like, okay, that's not going to work. You got to have a platform to stand on to be able to shoot a bow.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was like, climber, that seems to make sense to me based off of my past experience. So I used the Summit Viper. And for those who don't know, or maybe whatever, it was cool because I could carry it in and out,
Okay.
which by definition I felt was mobile.
Mobile.
Yeah, with a lot of...
Parentheses.
And also I worked out a lot more at this time. And so I was like, whatever, I'll carry this big bulky stand with me, right? And I did.
Well, it wasn't even so much that it was like crazy heavy.
It really wasn't. So I actually sold it recently to a neighbor.
Yeah.
And I was like, I went to grab it to bring it to him.
like,
and I was like, oh, this is actually not that heavy.
Because I've had one, and they're not like, I mean, their overall weight is like pretty heavy comparatively, which we'll get into, but like the weight displacement of it leaves it feeling like it's not that heavy.
It really wasn't heavy.
It's just bulky.
It was so cumbersome.
Yeah.
If you wanted to carry it actually through the woods, like you didn't have a trail to take it down.
Yeah. You're getting caught.
You're getting caught on everything. And it's not that it sticks above your head. It's wider than your body. And it sticks straight behind you.
Yeah, straight behind you. It's got
you got
every direction.
Yes, every direction. It is like...
It's a 3D nightmare.
Yes, it is. It really was. But in reality...
it got you in the woods.
It got me in the woods, and I killed deer out of it, right? But dragging that a mile plus really sucked. Really sucked. But it's what I had, and I didn't plan on... Like, I didn't know any other way to hunt at that point, really.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to sink... Like, I was getting into archery, so my money's already going everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? It's like bow, stand, clothing...
Everything.
Literally all the things. And so it was just like, is like, you know, me with equipment, is it functional? Does it get me up in a tree? I can shoot something from it. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
You use that for so you started off with the kind of an OG Viper, and then I remember a few years ago you upgraded to like a newer one, which was a little bit lighter.
Yep. So then I'm thinking, now we're really cooking, dude.
Now I'm lighter.
Now we're really cooking,
Oh
dude.
yeah.
And and it didn't deter me from going where I needed to go, but it just made it much more difficult.
Yeah.
Right. But at the time,
It's
it
like,
didn't
did
feel
you
like it
even
was more
realize that?
difficult. Yeah. It didn't feel more difficult. It was just, this is what it takes to get to where I need to go, because I didn't have things to reference it off of, and I wasn't interested in spending the time or thought about
This
equipment.
works.
Yep.
It gets me in a tree.
Exactly.
I'll kill stuff.
Exactly. Okay.
I'm a simple kind of man.
I'm a focused person on killing things versus equipment. Yeah, that's a song, right? All right.
Totally.
So just like the bow, having the 3 years off, right? And coming back to it and looking at that stand, even just looking at the stand, I was like, dude, this has got to change. Like, this can't be it.
What changed? Like what caused you to be like, wait a second?
I would say a lot of it was now, like because even when I wasn't hunting, I'd still watch like the Hunting Public.
Yeah.
I'd watch really anything that, I mean, if you watch anything besides people hunting on a box stands, like the stuff I'm interested in is mobile hunters typically that are moving around. They'll even midday they'll get down and be like, we need to be 60 yards that way, and they have the equipment to make that as easy as possible. So that you're not deterred from doing something like that, right? Like, it helps that whole process. And so even when I started hunting like that, I noticed that. I was like, oh, they have like, the whole climbing stick thing and the hang-ons, but everything was like made to be mobile. And I just hadn't put the thought or energy into it. And so when I started hunting again this year, it was like, okay, just like the bow, where it was like, I want to start hunting. And I could feel the dread of like, I want to move around a lot because I'm going to be scouting and hunting.
Yeah,
in
because we
season.
came into the season of
the
week of or week before. We're like, well, hey, it's hunting.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yes, exactly.
Where are we going?
Yep. Where are we going? Where are the deer?
Yeah.
Everything is outdated as far as information. And so part of why I even continued to scout was because, like, I'm not bringing that stand in unless I'm sure of where I want to be. Versus the stand's with me. If I find something I'm really excited about, I'm hopping in a tree, right?
Yep.
And so you can see the differentiation, because like I would walk 4 or 5 miles in in some loop to try to just get good intel and up to date info. And I was like, well, I'm definitely not carrying the stand with me if I'm going that far, or if I end up going that far. And so it would take away from even potentially the opportunity to sit and hunt in a tree. Okay, so I kind of, as I'm scouting and starting to find these areas, I'm like, oh, I do want to sit here in a tree. I was in the mindset of like, there's got to be something better.
Yep.
And there's got to, like, it needs to be lightweight. It needs to be very small. Most of my sits are. So this year's the first year. This year's the first year it's different. But most of my sits are typically, before this year, I would say are like 3, maybe 4 hours, right? I would say this year we're more.
Which I think we could clarify. Like, outside of rut, that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say for the most part.
We talked about it, kind of how we've set for rut, but like just outside of rut in general, which that's typically, middle September, and October.
Historically, I'm not archery hunting for bucks during rut.
Yeah,
and so this year is very different for me.
So, but
right now
picture.
and so like now my sits are, I would say, more 5 to 8 hours.
Yeah,
right.
But which is only for a little while. But generally speaking, you're kind of going in the morning, sit up. We don't see anything. I want to be able to get down, move around,
and take my stand. I don't want to have to be like,
because I remember how many times you left your stand there because you're just like, well, I'll come back tomorrow. Or,
yeah.
I just don't want to deal with hauling this out and back in.
Yep. absolutely. 100% factor for me.
And real quick, like how many times do you think maybe that like influenced you leaving like the idea of like, oh man, I don't really want to have to deal with hauling this out. So you know what? I'm probably just going to come back here tomorrow. And so I'll just leave this here versus like, I could probably go to this spot, but I don't want to deal with taking this in and out.
Well, I think there's kind of two factors. You have to factor in that I am, like we talked about in probably a couple episodes now ago, where it's like I'm typically more patient. Like I'm trying to not push too far too soon. I want to see something to inform my next decision when we're in season at least.
Yeah.
And so there was that coupled with how far back am I right now? Do I feel like I've used up this area or not? In a sense, I guess. And so the further back I was, the harder it was to be like, yep, I'll just take this with me. Likely I'll come back here, but if the wind, see, like this is where you start to get into like, oh, if it's a bad wind, now I'm stuck coming back here.
Yeah.
Unless I'm hunting from the ground now.
Yeah.
Right. And so it definitely impacted my decision of where I would sit next. It impacted all that kind of stuff. It made me go places that I probably shouldn't go on whatever wind it was, where it's like, this stand is not set up for that wind. Right. So anyway, all that to say, this year, for whatever reason, I don't even know. This is difficult.
This definitely was a surprise to me.
Okay, so this is what's difficult is that like I'm already past it. I'm like, what? I'm already onto this is U of Bows right now. Let's put it that way. Like it's bought and paid for, and I'm like, I want to like sell it and do the next thing, right? Like I'm ready to upgrade.
Welcome to the club, buddy.
Yeah. So with the Summit Viper, you need very, very specific trees.
Yep.
Right. You couldn't do you almost couldn't do any small trees.
Like they had to be at least like
rounded teeth.
12 inches.
Yeah, at least. Yes.
At least.
Yep. And they had rounded teeth. It just I would say very poorly set up. I actually did take, I had the bottom slip out once and I smashed my face on it. This is like 3 years ago. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, no, it was great. Wear your safety gear. But anyway, so that was that climber, and you had to have very specific trees for it. And I was like, okay, I'm comfortable. I know how to use a climber. I feel like it's very versatile. Bear with me. I felt like it was very versatile. And then I was like, kind of things I mentioned. I need it to be narrower than my body.
Mm-hmm.
I need it to be way shorter. Like I can't have it sticking up over my head.
Yeah, because the way they had if I remember the Viper right, like they had the cables running kind of up over the head, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So which was just does not, especially when you're trying to get like
the frame was probably about
like
your ear height
of the ear, and then you had those
you
cables,
had the cables that you couldn't shove in any further.
Yeah, you try to duck under anything. Yeah, forget it.
Absolute nightmare. Okay. So I needed just everything needed to be
Smaller.
super compact.
Yeah.
Right. For me to like dig in. So I start looking online, as one does.
Oh, I'll never forget.
You go ahead.
After you purchased what you purchased, I just remember you texting me being like, "So, I bought something, but no judgment." All right. I was like, "Oh boy."
All right. So
what did he do?
So I purchased the Lone Wolf crossover.
The Lone Wolf custom crossover.
Yeah.
Not just Lone Wolf, which doesn't exist anymore because they make crap.
Yeah, that history of that was very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Lone Wolf custom gear.
Yeah.
Crossover climbing stand, right? I mean, the profile on that is like 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Like,
which when you texted me,
insane, dude.
You're like, I might have bought a Lone Wolf custom crossover stand. I was like, oh snap! Like he went, which it didn't surprise me because I do know you love the best of the best. And then I started looking, I went online real quick. So I never looked at their
Yeah.
crossover climber.
Of course you haven't.
No. And I was like, and then I saw the specs on it, like what it broke down to. And I was like, and how light it was for what it is. I was like, oh, snap.
Yeah. I mean, literally
That's
looking
actually
at the side
legit.
of it, it's
That's
like this
legit.
thick. Yeah. It's like the top and bottom portion pushed together. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's
Not
like
even
an
2
inch-
inches.
Yeah, it's
and
insane.
What, a little over 11 pounds? Which
On your back is nothing.
That compares with a lot of the just normal end hang-ons.
Yes. Yeah.
Like not even the normal, the lighter end of hang-ons.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No judgment here. Like having carried a Summit Viper.
Yes.
I was like, I would have liked that too.
Yeah,
that would have been real nice.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So,
But
yeah, so I have that and I'm using it. I'm
You
currently using it.
yep.
Amazing,
We went on our-
amazing climber.
You had that for what? A couple weeks before a trip?
Yeah, so like I took it out one night and I was like, well, I should probably learn how to use this thing, right? And so I just
Always a good idea.
yeah, always.
Yeah.
And so I just ended up using it. Like I want to go climb a tree out in the woods where I can hopefully see something, kind of an observation sit was the idea. And mainly just wanted to use the stand, and so it's taken some getting used to because everything is more compact, and so it's just the operation
Different process.
Yeah, totally different process. Like now I've really got it dialed in right now. So I've loved it in the lane of climbers.
Yep.
Like it is the best climber I could imagine. Like they've thought so far forward, and it seems to go with all their equipment.
Yeah.
They've thought so far forward with everything that like as I get used to it and like just actually using it, and then like, oh, I should add something like this. It's like, yep, thought of it. Like they forgot the forethought for all that. And so that side of it has been really fun and surprising on like just setting up in a tree, all that jazz. And so now I have this really small compact stand.
Yeah.
And I'm running I think it's the 44 mag Kifaru backpack.
Yep.
Like frame backpack. And I'm thinking to myself, and I think we had talked about it. I was like,
Because before, like, I remember our last trip, you were running the Summit in the pack.
yes, like the pack was what I used to carry.
Was what you used to carry.
which did actually make it more comfortable to carry.
Oh, I bet.
Because the Kifaru frame is so nice.
Yeah.
And all the padding and crap and weight distribution. So either way, it was going to be cumbersome, but it made it at least comfortable to carry, right?
Yep.
And so one thing I've been really challenged with this year is like downsize. And so especially watching Cody DeQuisto.
Oh, man, the Dying Breed, Bo.
It's so good.
Cody.
It's so good.
He
Well,
is-
like, and I watched, I think he was on the Vortex
Yeah.
Nation podcast, something like that. And he's like, here's what I bring out. And it's like,
I know.
this
Like, this
almost
little
a fanny pack,
fanny
like
pack.
vinyl harness.
And
And
we're
I'm like,
like, no way.
yeah. And then he just starts unpacking and you're like, and like, I just had this reality hit where I was like, I'm only going out for X amount of hours.
Yeah.
I don't need this much. Like I can
Because
literally,
you kind of went out with the Boy Scout mentality of I got to be prepared for anything and everything.
yes, 100% agreed. 100% agreed. And so I bring everything I could ever need.
Yep.
And then the reality of it is like,
World War II or World War III kicks off. I am ready.
I'm already in the stand
I've
ready,
got
dude.
my AR.
Yeah. And so after watching that, like that, I think between you and that, like it really inspired me to be like, how do I pare this down? And I just started thinking to myself, like, can I walk back to the truck for it?
Yep.
Is it something that I'm able to not like, if something, whatever something is, right? Like shoot a deer.
Yep.
Even if I didn't bring my knife, I can walk back to the truck for it. I still keep my knife with me.
Well, yeah,
right?
because you always want to have a
Yeah,
knife
and it's
on
like,
you.
and it may or may not be the super lightweight, nice Iron Will knife.
Hey, weren't you gifted that? By
I was gifted
some-
by
some
my man.
nice guys.
Yes, that was awesome. But that's what I just started asking myself, like, okay, do I really need this? Did I touch that? Like, I'd get back from a hunt and be like, did I touch this? It's like, no. and I'm looking at this massive
You
backpack.
did have quite a setup.
This massive backpack, you know, with this really now new, nice, lightweight stand strapped to the back of it. And I'm like, what am I doing? This like defeats the purpose of the
Yeah.
whole thing. It's so light that even just using regular backpack straps that come with it, like it doesn't bother you.
Yo.
And so, so I ditched the backpack and I was like, okay, I'm just going to start trying to go with less and maybe I'll miss out on having something. But at the end of the day, I have my release, I have my bow, I have my stand, I have my safety line. And that led to even like changing the safety harness that I used in the tree. So that was super lightweight. I could just wear it the whole time when I leave the vehicle. And so then with changing from the Kifaru backpack, I literally just went to, you sent me a picture like, hey, here's some small backpacks at Fleet Farm. And then I happened to pop up later that day or whatever. And I was like, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to send it. Right. I'm like, this probably isn't the backpack I'll end with,
Yo.
but it's inexpensive enough and it's small enough that I'm going to just challenge myself to downsize. And so I got the backpack. So now instead of the climber running on the Kifaru pack, I have the backpack running on the climber, right?
Okay.
And just using the straps that came with the climber.
Okay.
So everything has downsized and I've gotten way less stuff and I want to continue to have way less stuff with me because it's amazing to be able to walk through the woods and just do like a slight dip instead of this like whole thing, this whole production.
Going full twister
yes,
mode.
literally. Yeah. Like,
let me twist.
yeah. And like,
And then you get caught in a branch. You're like, well, crap. Now I can't move either way.
yes, exactly. Okay. So, and the other thing that I've been inspired to, which is part of why we're talking about this when we talk about stands, is that I've realized that I've made a horrible mistake.
Oh.
That's what it is.
It is what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
But
it was a horrible mistake.
But I gotta ask, who's been saying for the last few
You
years?
have. You
Yes,
have.
thank you.
Yeah.
Because I've been harassing the crap out of you.
You have.
Because I've been like, dude, as much as as you love a climber, and as someone who ran a climber for a couple of years and then switched over to a hang-on, I was like, man, I really think, man.
I feel the conviction.
Yeah, you would love a hang-on. And you're like, no, I love my climber. I can just shimmy on up. And then I think
height was something we
height,
didn't
yeah.
mention. Yeah, it was like, oh, I can
I
go
can get
unlimited
really high.
height.
Yeah, because I don't
go as
I don't
high as I
need-
want.
It sticks. And I think one of the things that probably like at that time cemented it in for you was when on our last trip or second to last trip when we were in Wisconsin. I remember we went out one night and there was almost a race to like see who could get up first. And you won that. And I'm sure that played a point in it of like, oh yeah, look how much quicker it is. Like, suck it.
The Summit Viper was not quiet though.
No,
Right.
definitely was not.
My value, or the value I've put in getting in quietly versus quickly, has changed a lot.
Yep.
I would rather end up being there after first daylight, but have gotten in quietly and as undetected as one can be,
Yeah.
as far as the sound side of it, than be up there quickly and loudly.
Yep.
Right. And the Summit and even the climber, and it's even the climber I have now, the crossover, there's still an element of I'm dragging this up against the base of the tree to climb up it. Way better than the Summit.
Yep.
I've got some fabric tape in key areas on the stand. Like I've dialed in the stand for those purposes. But at the end of the day, there's a lack of control on the sound, I feel, versus like putting in a hang on.
Yeah.
So anyway, as I was saying, horrible mistake was made.
So at what point did you kind of realize in the middle of using this where you're like, well, shoot.
Not the word I would have used, but yes, it starts with the same letters.
Yeah. Well, shucks. I might have made a wrong decision.
Yep.
Because I know when I heard it from you, but I don't know if that was the moment or.
Yeah, you can refresh me on the moment. But as far as I remember, it was kind of a buildup of going out and being like, well, one, I've been in more of these really tight, gnarly areas, right? Where it's like I just need to be able to get up in any tree.
Yeah. Well, I think for me,
And second, I'm like, I started putting more value into like, there's the thing is you can be too high,
yep.
right? Like I'm getting skylined if I go too high now.
Yep.
And I was really a big believer in like the higher the better.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah. Because kind of, 3 years prior, that's kind of where we left at. You're like, no, I love getting high.
Yep.
And
in a tree.
Yeah. In a tree.
In a tree.
Yeah. In a tree. And I can't do that, or I'm very limited.
Yep. With sticks.
I have to carry out a lot of sticks.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like I have to carry out 5 sticks if I want to get as high as I can with the climber.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because which to a degree, a climber around here in northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota is a lot of times a really viable option because of the poplars we have. Like we can shimmy up
the popple and
the popple.
and the white pine.
Yep.
A lot of times, especially like the trees they'll use for telephone poles and stuff.
Yep.
You'll be able to go super high before you're into the branches.
Yeah, you can get pretty dang high.
And I think if you're in the right scenario, that's great.
Yep.
But the problem is that I'm starting to find is where I end up hunting.
Where you need to be where the actual bucks are.
The bucks are in daylight.
Yep.
Where I need to be, I do not have the flexibility of where I can go as much as I need to have.
And I don't know if this was the exact moment, but I remember on our hunting trip, we were kind of walking out one time because it first started with us walking in. I think that first morning you came out, you're like, dude, I don't know what kind of trees. And then talking afterwards, you're like, dude, there was almost nothing there for me to climb up into.
So with that, when we're talking about our most recent hunt, right?
Yeah, our hunting trip to.
Yeah, so I went out in the dark to an unknown location.
Yeah, I mean,
didn't know what the trees looked like.
You kind of knew what the area looked like, but you didn't know.
I didn't
have
a tree. Tree situation was. So, in that particular circumstance, I ended up in a skinnier tree that I had been in up to that point, right? Because the Viper Summit couldn't go in its trees that small.
Yep.
And so I was like, oh boy, like I haven't done this before. So this is where climbing and removing trees has helped, right? Because it's like, I know this can hold me. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
I just haven't done it in a climber. And so that's where this climber has shined, is like any tree that like, as long as you're in that 6 to 18 inch window, the thing bites and grips. Like, I mean, you feel so rock solid in this thing. It's amazing. But I was in the skinniest tree I'd ever been in a climber. So that was a new experience for me. But that was my option.
Yeah.
Because everything else was not going to work. Right? It was either too small or too many branches and gnarly. And, right? You've got all these different leaders going different directions. So obviously that wouldn't work for a climber. So a few things that I've run into this year that have kind of started to, that have definitely changed my mind is the areas I'm going to where where there are bucks in daylight based off of my evidence.
Cameras.
Yes. They are in areas where things are usually pretty gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to get up super high.
Yeah.
Like this year, I have set up so much lower than any year in the past. On average, right now, I would say on average, I'm probably about 8 to 10 feet up.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's sometimes I'm maybe 15, 20, but most of the time I'm lower. And that's a totally different sensation for me.
Very different.
Yeah. And so instead of the mentality of like, I need to be X amount, like I need to be this high to be undetected, I've changed it to, I need to have the best backdrop I can and the best cover and the best shooting lanes. So wherever that brings me, I'm going to end up. and I've started to see and find that range is much lower than where I've defaulted to before.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of trees that I would not have set up on if I had a stand that I could go up. I would be able to choose. If I could choose any tree, like with a hang on, I wouldn't be hunting from the trees I'm hunting with a climber.
Yeah.
And that's what has changed my mind. So even like I have found myself limited based on the wind where I should be in a small little island.
Yeah.
The wind has limited me to either putting myself in a bad position or not hunting that spot because of a climber. So that's what has changed for me this year. I've already told, we are already on to the next chapter. I just need to survive this season, which is going great. God.
That's how I felt last year with my bow. I was like, I know I got a new bow coming, but I just got to get through this year.
Turns out target panic goes with every bow.
Yeah, that's also true. Well,
do you think that encapsulates everything so far?
I think it does, because I mean, I had been pushing on you for a few years. I was like, man, you should get a climber. I think you would, or not climber, a hang on. I think you would love a hang on. It would just give you so much versatility. And you're always like, no.
I love the idea of going high.
Yeah, I love being high.
But I think what happened is I would settle for what trees were available.
Yep.
Versus like that tree is what I need to be in. Right. And I start to, and the other thing is like cover.
Yep.
It's almost by like definition, or it's like de facto that if you use a climber, you will not be in cover.
Yeah.
Yes, you can find a backdrop, and you should.
Yep. But you'll kind of be
but
out
in
there.
the tree you're in, at some angle, you will not be in cover.
Yeah, you'll be skylight.
Because, and that's where, with the hang on, I'm looking at these trees going like, any angle they looked at me, like I may not even be able to see them yet, but they won't be able to see me either because I'm actually in a tree that has,
good back
cover right up against me versus, set back.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that.
Well, and I think that thinking back to our trip to Wisconsin a number of years ago, 4 years ago at this point, I remember us going out one night. We kind of set up in a pine grove where, looking back, we were both skylighted like the Dickens.
I'm not sure which time you're talking about.
It was a few years ago. It was snowing.
Was it Minnesota?
No, it was Wisconsin. When we went out to Wisconsin, we ended up kind of went down into a pine grove not too far from where we camp. I remember. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway,
nothing happened. Nothing came through. But
obviously.
I just remember thinking back, like, oh my gosh, like there was no real back cover for us. We were skylighted, like the daylight in there. So that's definitely, I think, one thing that has changed for both of us. Because I know for me, like I ended up switching over to a hang on.
I don't think I've known you. Like I don't think you've had a climber since I've known you.
So when I started hunting the first year, I borrowed a hang on. The first time I ever went out hunting, I had borrowed a hang on from a buddy. Which, lesson learned: if anybody's new at hunting and hasn't done this, if you do have a hang on, make sure you are stripped down to the least amount of clothing you need on, because you will sweat your balls off. I was fully dressed by the time I got to the top.
That's horrible.
I was in a sauna. It was
That's so bad.
It was so bad.
And then you froze after that from holding still.
Oh, dude, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And so I remember borrowing that, and then I ended up buying a hang on. I don't even remember if it was like a little bit later that year or the following year. But then I quickly realized the value of hang-ons. And so I switched over to that, and I'd kind of like my bows, kind of go through a evolutionary process of upgrading.
Yeah, but this is where it's like, dude, save yourself the trouble. Just go to the top.
At this point, I'm kind of there.
Yeah. Well,
And
maybe they'll save us shipping if we both just.
Hey, maybe we could,
Yeah, because we both know where we're going.
Because I remember I got just the cheap hang-ons, your standard whatever brands, and they're just kind of cumbersome. And then I started really taking the dive down that 4 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever at this point, where it was like, oh, I want to be quieter. And so I ended up getting I forget even the brand, but a cast aluminum stand. That was a little bit quieter, but it was still kind of heavy. And then that's when, right around the time XOP started coming out with their aluminum stands, which was basically Lone Wolf knockoffs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I would like to get that. And so I ended up selling that, getting the XOP Vanish, I think, and running that for a couple of years. And then, working through the different equipment stuff of how do I carry the sticks and the straps. And
see, that's I think that's been a big deterrent for me. It's like, oh, I don't want to have to figure out how to, but that's where I think with Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, dude, to see how integrated everything is, I'm like, okay, they've already figured that part out for me.
Yeah. And that's where
it seems so seamless.
Yeah. And that's where, like, in this last year, last year of really the last 6 months or so of watching a lot of Cody DeQuisto's videos, and actually even more than that, the last year plus, like really seeing his stuff and setup and being like in the back of my mind, I'm like, that would actually be really cool. Like super mobile, super compact. Like he's just like streamlined.
Well, and he goes out with like one stick?
He'll go out with two. Yeah, he goes out with two. And so like, oh, that's cool. And so like last year or 2 years ago, I started running just a couple sticks and aiders, cable aiders on there.
Yeah.
Which I don't like getting high. There's a reason 10x10 came into play because I just don't like getting high. Plus, then too, just minimizes the equipment. Like 2 sticks going out where I could just bungee cord them together, and then I could set up where I could bungee cord my seat to make into a stand, so I could throw a pack on there. And like I started working on streamlining the system then. But I still found that the stand I had was still just big enough or slightly larger than my profile as I'm trying to go through the woods. It would catch on things. And when I talk about streamlining, I have to admit that it's not because like, oh, I want the lightest so I can go super deep in, because I ain't going very far deep in.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed is that it does catch on a lot of things. Yeah. And that's annoying.
And noisy.
It's noisy.
Jerks you around.
Yeah, it jerks you around. And then this last, half year, XOP has come out with more stands, and they came out with their Cold War stand, which is kind of like the cheap knockoff of the Lone Wolf Custom 0.5. So super small, super light, which was part of it was like, I could go from 11.5 pound stand to a 6.5 pound stand. Like that's actually a decent amount of weight. Plus the profile of it, look at it, I'm like, oh, that's super small, like compact.
Yeah. Which I think profile is probably. I would. Sorry, something stuck in my throat. The value of having a small profile, like I would think it's worthwhile if they weighed the same.
Yeah,
but they were condensed enough.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah, and that's what I found experientially this year was when I ended up selling that other one, buying the Cold War, and running that now this season. I have loved. At first, it took me a little bit to get used to just standing up in it because it is so small. The first few times I was just like, I feel like I'm going to fall off. Now I'm used to it, which in conjunction with, I'll kind of jump into the harness and hybrid system running. But the profile of it, going through the woods, dude, I love. Because I can just zip through the woods.
It literally feels like you're wearing a book bag.
Yeah.
Which is no big deal.
Getting caught.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think so part of what has made this climber, right?
Yeah.
When you're looking at the Summit versus what I'm running now,
the Summit is made to sit back, relax, and I would say primarily probably shoot a rifle out of.
Yeah.
Because it literally came with this big
Designed
cushion chair.
for FUD.
Yeah, what a derogatory term.
But it came with this like big cushion chair, like where you could literally fall asleep in it. And
It's
like
very comfy. I will give it that.
I took it off. It was the first thing I took off. I was like, I don't care about this. I literally, even now, like if I'm out in the day I was out for 14 hours, I sat down for maybe a cumulative 60 minutes in that time. And like I'm standing the whole time, especially with the new harness that we're just about to talk about. And so, but when you're facing the tree, I don't know if you're doing that or not, but like when you're facing the tree,
doing a little bit more
your
now.
foot, you actually have more foot room
Yep.
versus facing out,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And so that's where like I'm looking at this going like, okay, I wasn't planning on being like a hybrid
Saddle hunter, wannabe.
saddle, yeah, like wannabe, which it was just like, oh, this actually feels more natural to me, and I feel
Yeah.
like I have a wider range of ability to shoot.
Yep.
And it makes it feel like I can actually have a even smaller platform.
Yep.
So like when I first got up in in the Lone Wolf Custom Gear Climber the
Yeah.
crossover, I had like the standard harnessed, like full body harness thing going on where it's hooked up behind you. And I'm like, I don't have enough foot room. Like,
Yeah.
I can barely stand up in this thing.
Yep.
And then when we had switched to the
Well, yeah, and that kind of takes me to, I think, which was for both of us a huge jump or change.
changer.
It really was.
Dude.
So
You guys,
I did
this
not
is so big.
realize this. If anything, you take away from this series, this is probably the best thing. I didn't even think about this, realize this till I came across Matt Zernzak from the Push Archery. He had a little video on talking about shooting from a tree stand.
Yeah.
Which was the main point of the video, but he real briefly talked about his harness setup.
Yeah.
And how he was running. It was a Dryad killdeer harness, which is basically like a rock climbing harness, which goes around the waist and legs.
Yeah, it's almost so like I have a harness for removing trees, right?
Yeah.
And so we have like it's the Petzl Sequoia
Yeah.
harness, which is like the bee's knees, top of the line harness, made to be comfortable wearing all day. But it's got a bunch of metal on it, and so it wouldn't be great for what we're doing.
But
so when you saw this, it was more of like a minimalist, closer to a minimalist rock climbing harness.
But the idea of like a minimalist rock climbing harness where it allows you, instead of attaching up on the back, now we're attaching to the front kind of by the crotch.
Yep, at the bridge. Yep.
Which then he talked about how that setup allowed him to be able to expand the amount of different angles and positions to shoot, where he could step down. He was running it like a saddle hybrid.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Because one of the things I have hated about this traditional tree stand harness, with it being attached to the back, is
there's no positive tension.
There's no positive,
There's no positive tension that is holding you in place to lean out against.
Yeah, and then it you can't really turn certain ways. It just it's super restrictive. It's heavy.
Yep.
And it was just not functional.
But the other part of it too is that like you didn't want to wear it on your way out to the stand, right?
And then also one thing we like positive tension is a really big deal. So even when I'm climbing a tree, we have a safety line that we shoot up into the top of the tree, and then we use our flip line to spur up the tree.
Yeah.
One thing that really gives you a lot of, we'll say, security in the tree. So if you think about the traditional one, there's no tension until you've already fallen, right? Right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't act as an aid to steady you in any sense.
Yeah.
And so when we
Just to
switch
stop
to
you
the
from
new
dying.
harness, is it the XOP Holiday harness?
Yeah, the XOP Holiday.
So that's what we're
That
running
rock
currently.
climbing style
And
harness.
that is even more minimalist, even so much so that I texted you and I was like, dude, I wouldn't wear that. Like, that doesn't look safe.
Yeah, at first you're like,
Because
dude,
it has plastic.
that just...
It's got plastic buckles for the
legs.
legs, right? But
Yeah.
it does have it's totally fine on the waist part of it. But after I went out and used the other one, I was like, okay, this has to change.
Yeah, especially with a climber. Like
Yes, 100%, 100%. And so with the Holiday XOP one, what I found is that, okay, all of a sudden now I can have positive tension, meaning I've got tension on that rope.
Yeah, I can either...
on my, what I would call a lifeline.
Yeah.
So I'd have that on, my lifeline would actually have tension on it, and I use it with the rope runner that you hooked me up with.
and instead of a Prusik knot. And I'm able to adjust that quickly,
Yep.
and I can probably shoot. Oh my gosh. I think I can shoot almost, well, I would say probably 260 degrees.
Yeah.
100 degrees of that is like you've got to do some finagling to get prepared. You'd have to hear the deer coming type of thing, or it's far enough
Yeah.
away.
But in the
But
end,
it's
it
insane.
does increase.
Yes, a wildly increases.
Like, because if I had the traditional harness, the most I can get is I can't even get a full 180 degrees.
Yeah. So with this, what's nice is that I can lean out, I can dip down, and I'm fully seated in the
Yeah.
harness.
Harness, and I'm allowing the tension to hold me up, and I can get in positions that I would not be comfortable
Yup.
shooting otherwise.
Yep.
And that's where it really opened up the ability to shoot.
Yep.
Right. And so when we talk about like the equipment and wanting it to be like, this is a tool, it needs to help me.
Yeah.
Right. And so before it was this preventative thing.
Yep.
Of like,
it
I
was a
don't-
very passive.
Yeah, it was a
Keeps me from dying.
It keeps
at
me
the
from
wor-
dying,
Best
yep.
case scenario.
where now it's turned into this really positive tool that has actually increased my ability
Yes.
to take shots in the stand.
Yes. And not only like for me, also it's helped me feel a lot safer. Because when I was running the other stand, being that I don't climb very high, I wasn't always wearing the harness because
Yep.
I was like, oh, this is just an extra
Yep.
step. It's heavy. Whereas now, like, no, it's that tool. Like, it is
Yep.
aiding me and giving me greater function. And also, too, like, there's sometimes I could be standing up, I can be off to my left, and I can tighten that sucker up. Whereas, again, I can almost like
You have that positive tension.
that positive tension where, like, nope, like I can lean if I have to. I feel secure, regardless if I'm standing, whatever angle. If I'm
Yep.
seated,
Yep.
oh, I'm secure.
Yeah, and that's the big thing with I think the Prusik knot is functional,
Yep.
but getting something like a ropeman,
Yeah.
that is the way to go. That will it's
Dude, that
easy
one,
to-
that one-handed.
one-handed. Yep, a one hand operation. That is definitely a
Yeah.
massive part of it because I find myself even tweaking it like 1 inch at a
Yep,
time,
yeah.
depending on what I'm doing, what I hear, what direction I want to be looking.
It absolutely has
Dude,
changed the game.
It's a game
Yeah.
changer. And like you said, it's not just a preventative thing. It's
Yep.
it's adding to. It's
Yeah.
giving me a greater range of ability.
Yes.
To where now the point, like even though a lot of these times for me, I'm only going out and I'm climbing 8 to maybe 10 feet.
Yeah.
I'm wearing that and I'm bringing that safety line because of what it aids me.
Yeah,
in.
the functionality,
Yeah.
like the ability it actually gives you.
like I don't want to go out without it.
Yeah, because
Because
it
of-
would take away the
Yeah.
amount of
Yep.
degrees you could shoot
Yup.
in the tree. So that's changed the game. And like we've probably done both have done full sits in this
Mm-hmm.
XOP version. You definitely can feel it on your hips as
Yeah.
the day wears on.
It's definitely you don't want to really run it as a saddle.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I basically do for the most part, but I would not traditionally because the stand is more under my feet than like what you would see in a saddle.
Or you're
thing,
like
right?
just
So where it's like 12 inches off the tree.
You're just basically healing into it.
Yep. And so I have more area that I can cover with my feet, which is great because I actually have found that like again, just being able to pivot around a tree and have that mobility is massive. And so for me, like, what I'm looking to change and go to probably for the next stand, which is going to be a hang on, would be the Ranger stand, which
Okay.
is built for
They're hybrid.
It's essentially, it's their hybrid. It doesn't
Built
have
on with
cables.
custom.
Yep, it doesn't have cables on it holding the platform so that you can really twist around the tree as much as you
Yeah.
need to without hitting those cables on your mid calf
Yeah.
area kind of thing or ankles.
Yeah. Which for me with shooting the trad bow, I found I don't need quite as much just because like I can't get to those crazy angles you can with a compound.
And that's where when we talked about the bows, it's like the compactness of that does help in that circumstance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where
even I ordered a new bow hanger today where it's like I need everything to be really tight to the tree because
Yeah.
I can actually shoot around the tree and
Yeah. You don't want some giant arm sticking out.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of stuff that I kind of just did and accept it as like, oh, this is what I have, and that's great. To where this year, I kind of have like, I keep running into these things where I'm like, why isn't it better?
You're constantly in that mindset of like, ooh, how can I tweak this? Or like, what would make this a little more
is what's
efficient?
different. Yeah, this is what's different for me. Is for the first time ever, I am taking notes on my phone about like, that's annoying. I don't like that. There's got to be something better. And I don't necessarily like obsess and Google it like all the time, because I think it's a full year-long process, right? Where it's like, I just need this to be slimmer. I need this to be out of the way. I need this to take less time. I need this to be less noisy.
Which I think we probably both have a lot to accredit Cody DeQuisto for that, because watching his series, his vlog series he's been doing since this season has been a game changer for me. Like just so many little things that he has already kind of figured out and set up. Like even just a simple quick tie system that I've started implementing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer for just like, whoop, I can just throw stuff on, quick tie it down, wham.
Well, and like what's cool and what I thought, I think what I walked away with was like when he was talking and showing his setup on that Vortex podcast, is that he said, I challenged myself to only take out 2 sticks.
Yeah.
Right? And
Man
make
after
that
my own heart.
make that work. And when he said that, I was like, I just started thinking of it more of like a challenge to myself of like, how can you bring less?
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, okay, now I kind of want to just get this down to like a modular bino harness, right?
Yep.
And I've already got one like in a cart, like packed away, but I'm kind of like working my way in that direction, and money obviously is a factor. But like, I'm like, if I buy this, I want to make sure that this is what I can actually pull it off with type of thing. And so every time I go out, and as I buy little things like a different bow hanger that's smaller, more compact, tighter to the tree, easier to put on, take off, I've started to kind of like work my way in that direction, and just realize like when I'm out there, I'm like, oh, dude, like I don't need all this crap.
Yo.
And it ends up making the hunting experience more enjoyable.
Yep.
Because it just overall
streamlines the whole system.
It feels like you're
process.
You're freer to do what you want, and you're not having to like take into consideration, oh, I've got to carry this out. Oh, this like I don't know if I want to carry my stand back out. It's like it's so easy. That it's no big deal.
Yep. Yeah, because I've caught myself a couple times now where I think historically, even a few years ago, I would have been like, where I probably was going to come back to the same area the next morning. I would have just left my stuff. Sometimes I do, just because I'm like, no, like tomorrow
I'll be
morning,
back in 10 hours.
I'll just be back in 10 hours. I'm coming out.
Yeah.
Versus other times, like I might come back here, but I might go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And before I would have probably just left and be like, you know what? I'll just come back here. Whereas like now it's just like, it's so quick. It's so light, so easy.
Yep.
Like, it's more work. It would be more work for me to come back in and grab this. And
So
streamlining.
and that's where I think it just has to be, because I have to be able, like we have to be able to change with the wind.
Yep.
And like the spots, we're literally hunting, like at least for me, especially for me this year, the places I'm hunting have to be an extremely specific wind for it to be worthwhile.
Yep.
And so if the wind's projected this and I wake up the next morning and I check the wind and it's different, which has happened, I'm like, crap. Right?
And how limited those climbers are.
Yes.
I mean, you just...
And going, okay, so I've scouted, and this is where I just need to get better at doing a better job of taking mental note of actually, so like I found an area, right? There's scrapes everywhere, yada, yada, yada. And then most of my hunts happen in the morning just with the family at this point in life. Evenings are usually busy.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding a tree in the dark that you want to set up on, that you have good sight line and good cover, all that stuff, that's been a real challenge. And so I just need to mentally get back on that, where it's like, okay, now I have to find a climber-worthy tree and make sure I have good sight lines. And I've had to compromise and be in positions I wouldn't necessarily have picked had I had a hang-on system.
Yeah.
But I like in all honesty, the hang on thing still feels a little intimidating because it's unknown.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, I've got to put the steps and all that. But
Yeah.
just like switching to this climber, there was a learning curve. But
Yeah.
now that I'm dialed, I'm like, oh, this is so nice.
Yeah, I think once you actually make the switch, you're going to kick yourself. for
Why
not
didn't
doing
I
it.
switch
Yeah,
sooner?
exactly. Like the freedom it gives you, the versatility it gives you, especially with that kind of harness style system that we can run a hybrid between a hang on / saddle.
Yeah.
Because the problem with the full saddle is I feel like you're still limited
Mhm.
versus
I 100%
like
agree.
why not at
I
this point?
turn around
Like at this point, why not run both?
like there are so in my sets I will take maybe on the shorter days or whatever I'll take 10-15 minutes, get the weight off my legs, off my knees, and like that is invaluable.
And sometimes there's just trees that a climber or even a saddle would not work. Where you
Yeah.
could, I can just climb up there. I can sit there
Yeah,
all day if
Yeah.
I had to.
that is I'm never going back on the hybrid system, I would say, at this point.
Yeah, same.
It's
here.
just opened up a whole new ability. And
And what's nice is like, so I think anybody listening that is maybe just trying to figure out like get into all this.
yes,
Like the nice thing is really in the end, you really don't have to spend that much money. You can find a cheaper, smaller stand.
Mhm.
You can, get a couple sticks. So you don't have to get 4 sticks. You get a couple sticks. Aiders are super cheap. So you're doubling your sticks from there.
well, basically, so like if you have a 2 sticks and an aider on both of them,
Yeah.
that's like having 3 sticks, right? Because
I
you're
would
adding
say
a step.
4.
Really, you
almost.
can stretch it out
Yeah,
that far.
yeah.
Okay.
You have your aiders, and then you get a harness. Like you don't even have to buy like a hunting harness. You could even just buy a rock climbing harness.
They aren't
you
as
can
cheap.
find
They aren't as cheap as the XOP. I looked into it.
you can find them for like $50.
Which is the XOP?
Yeah, so
You'd have to show me.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to
So,
show me which ones you're talking about,
like,
because that's the
pretty-
first thing I did when I saw yours. I was
Yeah.
like, "There's got to be a rock climbing harness. That's that's more secure than this."
Yep.
Because I didn't like I still don't like the plastic buckles, but I was like, "Well,
there's a lot of entry level climbing harnesses like that.
Okay.
You are right around the same.
yeah."
same
Someone's
price.
on Temu, but I digress.
I'm not talking team. I'm talking like Black Diamond. But around $50, you can get a harness.
Dude, it's such a game changer, and you
And-
have to get a rope man.
I would say for probably on a couple $100 or so,
Mm-hmm.
you could $250. You could get a full setup. Which might not be the lightest. It might not be the best.
Yeah.
But for $250 for a setup that's going to give you the range
Maximum
of versatility
mobility.
and mobility that I wish I had started with,
Mm-hmm.
because from there you can slowly upgrade.
yeah,
Like that, like you're going to be so much more in the game.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
and like that idea of like having to get crazy high, especially around here,
yeah,
most of the cover is gone.
Yep,
And even
yep.
during the early season,
Yep.
I realized, oh, I'm not getting very high because my back cover is
perfect right here.
is
Yeah.
the
The canopy.
the canopy. So why do I need to get super high?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's definitely a game changer. And it's one of those things is like, man, why didn't I realize this? Why wasn't anybody really promoting this? But hey, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
know?
Well, and one thing too that with the getting super high is that if you think about your scent, slowly falling diagonally or whatever
Yeah.
down, and as a like
Fan
kind of like a cone,
cones
yeah,
out.
like cones out. Is like that was one thing Cody mentioned too, where he's like, yeah, there are times where being high does really make sense.
Yeah, if it can
In the
kind of
right
like carry
circumstance.
over.
Yeah, he's like, there are times it does make sense, but more times than not, at least from what he's found, and then I've kind of applied that thinking to the locations I've been in, and I'm like, yeah, the lower does actually help in this
'Cause then
circumstance. It's dropping sooner, and it's not going as far.
Yeah.
right. It's not carrying as
Yeah,
far.
it's not carrying as far.
And the thing I like about being able to shoot that maximum amount of degrees is that I have had deer walk in with the wind. I've had them walk in on my trail.
Yep.
And typically I would set up assuming that area is burnt
Yep.
and that they would not come from that direction. And so I'll set up now to where that's the hardest place typically for me to shoot. But now it's way more possible and easier for me to get in a position to shoot that direction.
Yep.
Right? Where I'm really leaning into the saddle and shooting on the weak side
Yep.
instead of my left side, right?
Yep.
That's where it's really changed things for me, where I'm like, I don't think I'd ever go full saddle, and I don't think I'd ever go full just like sitting in your stand.
I don't think it
facing away from the tree.
Why limit yourself when you can have the best of both worlds?
Yeah. And like you can literally, if it makes the most sense to sit, like if you find yourself in a situation where it's like, yeah, just put my back to the tree and sit down all day.
Now you have that option.
You can do that.
If you want to stand and
dude.
So it's definitely been a game changer, and I'm super excited for next year. You know, I think one of the things I will upgrade next year is my harness.
Yep.
I think I'll go to a Dryad Killdeer.
Yeah,
a little
I
thicker
did.
straps.
I did actually look at that, and before you had even sent it,
Oh,
and
really?
I was like, yeah, having a little wider pads around the waist and the hips, but especially the waist is what I found would
the
be.
XOP is just a little too thin. I think it's great as just like a super minimalistic.
It's like 1 inch strap.
It's super
around your
light,
thighs
and but
waist.
I would like a little thicker like the Dryad has.
I'm not sure if I'll change yet. I'd be interested to
Okay.
check yours out when you get it.
Yeah, I'm definitely upgrading.
Yeah. And thankfully, Lone Wolf Custom Gear holds its value pretty well. So should be able to get.
I will say the one thing that I would like to, if I can get my hand on a Lone Wolf Custom like 0.5, is the XOP flexes a little more than I like. Is the one thing I
like. There's playing the actual stand.
Yeah, playing the actual stand. So I'm like,
and that's where you're afraid of heights.
I'm not so much like I'm afraid of
Are you
height.
afraid
Actually,
of breaking, or what are you
I don't
worried
know.
about the flexing?
I'd just be curious to see how the XOP or the Lone Wolf feels.
Yeah.
You know, plus based off what I've seen on Lone Wolf, they do bite a little bit better.
Dude.
The XOP, I don't necessarily, it doesn't
Literally
bite.
So like, okay.
Does not bite.
For
So I'm
example-
actually,
for
first time in my life,
yeah.
I'm running 2 straps around, an upper and a lower.
Interesting. Okay.
Because, especially with how small it is, I'm
Yeah.
like, I want all the security.
Yeah. So, and that's where what I found with the Climber. I mean, they've literally almost every time I see something on it, people are like, okay, some people might want to like round these teeth off because they're
it's
so
bad.
sharp. And I've seen guys actually put like half a noodle, like a pool noodle, over the back of it because if you were to fall, your head would potentially hit those because those spikes are sharp. And I'm like, this is the only way, right? And I assume their stands are going to be the same way where their teeth are just basically razor sharp. And I'm like,
plus their, I know for their 0.5 and plus the way the seat locks in, it's just a structural design versus XOPs. I don't necessarily like for long term because it's a weird little screw base.
Oh, really?
So you're not going to be able to support it like the Lone Wolf has. So I think if I can somehow find a used one,
sell 4 your bows. You'll be fine, dude.
I've sold all the bows.
Well, sell one of your kids. It'll be fine.
There we go. I got a few of those.
Oh,
Man,
dude. Okay, cool. So part 2, stands covered.
Stands were covered. Yeah.
Awesome.
Everything we've learned.
Yes.
It's been good.
Cool.
Hopefully you guys found it helpful. And well, till next time, peace out.